The wind that night in Charleston did not move gently, it howled like the cry of a spirit that had waited too long for justice. The moon hung low, swollen and red, as if it too had seen enough of man's cruelty. Down by the river, a figure moved, silent, deliberate, cloaked in the shadow of vengeance. His name was Solomon. Born into chains, beaten into silence, and baptized in the fire of pain, he had once bowed his head to 9 masters. But tonight, the soil would swallow them whole. Solomon had been a slave since the day he could remember, a body branded not by choice but by cruelty. He had plowed the same fields where his mother's screams once faded into the dust. He had served men who treated mercy like sin and pain like pleasure. But over time, something in him changed. His silence became a language of its own. He listened, he watched, he remembered. Every insult, every lash, every drop of blood became part of his plan. They thought he was broken. They thought his soul was gone. But deep inside, Solomon kept a secret, a patience sharper than any blade, a faith darker than midnight. He did not pray for freedom anymore, he prepared for it. And freedom, for Solomon, would not come with papers or promises. It would come with the sound of earth closing over the cries of his masters. The first one was easy. The overseer who once whipped him until his back bled through his shirt, he was found near the well, half buried, gasping for air that would not come. The town whispered of curses, of restless spirits. But Solomon just smiled as he scrubbed the blood from his hands, humming the same hymn his mother once sang to keep herself from breaking. The second and third fell in one night. The brothers who had made a sport of humiliation, one was lured by a false trail of gold, the other by the promise of a runaway slave worth catching. By dawn, the swamp had claimed them both, their bodies pulled into the same mud they once made others toil in. Charleston woke up that morning uneasy. Rumors spread like fire. The devil walks among us, someone said. But the devil had a name, and his name was Solomon. By the time the 4th master disappeared, the city had begun to tremble. The plantation owners locked their doors at night, armed themselves, and prayed for safety from the very God whose name they used to justify their sins. Solomon knew their prayers well. He had been forced to kneel and repeat them countless times. But his faith had changed. It was no longer in the words of white men, it was in the justice of the earth. The 5th and 6th died together. They had once laughed over the fire, betting who could make a man scream the loudest. Now, their laughter echoed from beneath the same ground they used to own. Solomon buried them under their own barn, grain falling like ashes over their graves. He whispered no curse, no farewell. He only said, "Now you understand." The 7th was the cruelest of all, a man who had ripped families apart, sold children like cattle, and smiled while doing it. Solomon did not bury him quickly. No, he made him dig his own grave, under the weight of his own arrogance. The man pleaded, bargained, even cried. But Solomon only said, "Every shovel you lift is for the names you forgot." When the hole was deep enough, he said his mother's name aloud for the first time in years, and pushed the earth down. By now, Charleston was chaos. White men fled their plantations, terrified of a shadow they could not catch. The city guards searched every corner, every field, but Solomon had become part of the land itself. The slaves whispered his name with awe and fear. Some called him a prophet, others a ghost. But those who knew the pain he had carried understood, he was neither. He was a reckoning. The 8th master, Solomon, spared not out of mercy, but out of lesson. He let him see the graves, one by one, his friends buried alive, their cries echoing through the soil. "You made us dig graves for your gold," Solomon said, his voice calm as the graveyard wind. "Now the earth remembers." The man begged for forgiveness, but forgiveness was a language Solomon no longer spoke. And the 9th? Oh, the 9th was special. He was the first master Solomon ever served, the one who had taught him that pain was obedience. Solomon found him old, frail, still clutching the past like a trophy. He brought him to the river where his mother's body had once been thrown. The old man trembled, eyes wide with terror. Solomon knelt beside him, looked him in the eye, and said, "This is not revenge. This is return." Then, slowly, he pushed him beneath the water until the ripples faded. When morning came, Charleston was silent. 9 masters gone, their estates collapsing into dust and fear. No one ever saw Solomon again. Some said he vanished into the swamp, others swore they saw him walking on the water at dawn, free at last. But the truth lived in the land itself. Every time the wind passed through those fields, it carried the whisper of his name, Solomon, the man who turned soil into judgment. And so when we speak his name today, we are not telling a tale of murder. We are telling a story of balance. A story of a man who bore the weight of injustice until the world itself tipped back toward right. The soil remembers. The river remembers. And sometimes, when justice sleeps too long, it wakes up wearing the face of a slave named Solomon.